Folks, listen.
Welcome to another episode of D&M, bringing questions for you that we find interesting. We don't know until the other person says, and bring a mystery to the table for all the generations. Two people from two different backgrounds trying to make sound about the world around us. They both bringing light to the questions they ask. Dina and Michael sliding in your DMs with class. Hey, it's D&M. Hey, it's D&M. D&M. It's D&M. Hey, it's D&M.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sliding with D&M. This is episode 8. This week, I have global and Dina has cultural, and I'm going to start us off this week. So, I would like to know your thoughts on the global perception of mental health. And I can give you a little bit of background of where this question comes from. So, I have many friends and family that struggle with their mental health. We'll put it that way. And I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and I think what is so interesting is how the movement to be comfortable speaking about mental health and be comfortable with looking for resources to help people with mental health has progressed over time. So even 20, 30 years ago, right, in your lifetime when you were growing up, nobody really spoke about their mental health. And if you did, a lot of the time, you would be discounted about what you felt, or you would be locked up in an insane asylum, right? So there was no treatments available for people with mental health issues. You were just kind of seen as a mark on society that you shouldn't be there. So I think we've made a lot of progress on the mental health, and a lot of it I think is due to my generation and millennials. Just for the push to be comfortable to speak about mental health and to look for those resources out there if you need help. And also resources have become so much more widely available as well. There's so many places you can call now, so many hotlines you can call to speak to people instantaneously, right?
Yes.
So what are your views on that, and what do you think like the global perception of mental health and how it's progressed throughout the years and how that's been?
Okay. So first part, I think mental health is huge. It is so important, because if you don't have good mental health, and I like to say wellness, because I think wellness is more encompassing. If you don't have good mental wellness, everything else is not going to fall into place. It really, truly isn't. And so that's the first thing. The second thing, I think it has gotten better over time. Is it where it needs to be? Absolutely not. There's still such a huge stigma about having good mental wellness, or even saying, hey, I need help. I need someone to talk to. I need someone to help me. Because I think there's this embarrassment of, I don't have my crap together. Nobody wants to be seen as the person that doesn't have their crap together. And really, I think it's just it's people's own perception of themselves. Feeling like I always have to present myself a certain way and be a certain way because the Jones up the street are that way, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, and they could be suffering and struggling and you don't know it. So I think it's important that if you are struggling, that you ask for help. Like, there is no shame in asking for help. To me, it takes more courage to ask for help than saying nothing at all. And so I think globally, I think it is probably better in some countries than in others. You see those studies all the time where, how happy are people in such and such country and here in this country? And some countries have it a little bit better figured out than the United States. I'm just going to throw it out there. They really do. They understand that people's mental health and wellness is so important, right? Because if you don't have good mental wellness, how do you work? How do you function? How do you go to a job every day? How do you get paid? How do you make money? And I'm not saying that making money is like the end all be all, but you do need money to have certain basic functions in life. Like it's just,
Oh
that's the
yeah.
way it is. That's what we live in. And
Hmm.
so there are countries that have figured out that people need to have good mental wellness. I mean, you see that there are countries that offer more days off in a
Hmm.
month because they realize that people need that time. It just can't be constant go, go, go. We don't have that here in America. We don't
Hmm.
offer, you know, you can use your own personal time. Like if you want to
Yeah.
use your own time, your own sick time, but we don't actually have it built into our like separately. Like, you get so many PTO days, you get so many sick days, you get so many mental wellness days. We don't
Hmm.
have like mental wellness days. It's either you take a sick day or you use your PTO, your own personal
Right.
time,
Hmm.
which I think and I would hope that after being in a pandemic here for pretty much ongoing now a year, that would change because I think we haven't even scratched the surface of seeing the amount of mental instability that has
Oh
occurred
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because so many people have been isolated because they can't be out. And it's not that they don't want to be out, they literally just can't because of health
Hmm.
concerns and health reasons. And so I think we don't even know what the long term effects of what we've been doing the last year will be, especially with those that are students and young kids. Um, they have been resilient and they have worked hard and adapted, but I don't even think we really know the full effects of what that will be until much later in their life when they are starting to become functioning adults and we see how they begin to function as adults. Will we know the actual effects of what happened in 2020, 2021 during this pandemic for them? So I think it's important that we make it a priority. We need to, we just really really need to, because if you
Yeah.
have good mental wellness, then I truly believe that things fall into place. Like you feel better about yourself, you are in a better spot, you have a different mindset about things, and I think that's so important. And you see so many people that suffer from depression and anxiety, and they're on this medication and that medication to help regulate it, and I
Hmm.
think that's a good thing as well. But I also think that we have to provide people the tools, um, to help them have mental wellness. If so, what happens if they can't get their medication, which happens, you know, their
Hmm.
medication skyrocket and they can't afford it? Do they have the tools in order to try to have good mental wellness, at on least some basic level, not perfect, but some basic level without the medication until we can get them the medication that they need. So I think it's
Yeah.
just a huge part. I think it is getting better in America, but it's still not great. I think in other countries it's much better, and it's evidenced by that, and they have studies that have proven that. And I think we in America need to get to that point that it needs to be more of a priority. I don't think it is really or truly has been a priority. Um, and it's kind of sad that it's not a priority. It should be.
Hmm.
Um, and you and I personally have friends that we know that struggle with these things. They
Oh
struggle with
yeah.
them.
I
And
mean,
like I
I think that it's just not talked about. I mean, there's things I'm sure that you struggle with that we've never talked about. There's things that I struggle with that I don't really talk about. But I think the reason why I'm so interested in this topic right now is because, and I'm going to give a trigger warning for all of those listening. So if you know what follows with mental health conversations. So if that is one of your triggers, then please skip ahead or revisit us in around minute 30, minute 25. That should be plenty of time. And you can rewind from there to see where we started talking about the fresh topic. The reason why I am so interested in this right now is because I've read that Japan, which is a country that I've come to admire a lot recently just because I think Japan really has their shit together for some reason. I don't know why. I just have this perception that they got their shit together as a country. So,
But that's
Japan,
okay because my middle son feels the same way. Like he is all things Japanese culture, like all day, every day.
I
And I
mean,
would not be
I,
surprised if he lived there for a long period of time. Like I would not be surprised if that he would eventually live there one day for a year or two or three. Like I mean he
yeah,
feels the same way. So I completely understand why you feel that way.
I just don't know what it is about Japan. I think for me personally, it's the fact that like Tokyo is such a big modern city, right? And they have like so much new tech and everything's so like high functioning and accessible. But then if you go to the Japanese countryside, there's people there who are very traditional, right? So like I think it's that blend between super old school and super new school that really attracts me to it. But regardless, that's besides
Okay.
the point. So Japan has elected, or the prime minister of Japan, I guess, has appointed a minister of loneliness. Okay. And what this minister's job and the reason why he was appointed in the first place is because Japanese people are struggling with suicide a lot, more so
Mhm.
than I think many other countries. And they struggle a lot, especially now in a pandemic situation. They struggle a lot with social interaction. So, what this
Mhm.
minister's job is, he was basically appointed to try to curb this issue and try to see if they can start lowering suicide rates because I think their suicide rates spiked because of COVID. If I'm speaking correctly. I'm not entirely sure. So
Okay.
Japan has actually appointed somebody whose job it is to try to make mental health something that is more spoken about and more easily accessible to people so that people stop taking their own lives and dying, right? There should be no reason why that's happening. And
Yes.
I think that that is a completely modern thing. I think only in the last 200-300 years have people really started struggling, and even more so in the last 50-60 years have people started really struggling with mental health to the point that they're willing to take their own lives. You know what I mean? I don't
Yes.
think I've
Okay.
ever heard of Greek or Roman people taking their own lives because they struggled with depression or anxiety, right? I think it really is a product of industrialization and how we function as a society. Just that 9 to 5, 5 days a week work life where you're expected to devote your entire life to your job, which in many cases is completely meaningless, right? In the grand scheme of things.
Mhm. I
So, like,
think,
what are your thoughts
yeah,
on
I
that?
mean, and I think even more so in the last like 50 plus years, you've seen this trend of work, 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 do what we got to do. We got to get to the next level. We got to be here, we got to
Hmm.
be there, right? And you're right, devoting lots of time to a job, because, and let's also be clear, there are very few people that have a career in one thing. I can think of teachers. Teachers have a career where they stay in a job for 20 to 25 plus years, they retire out of that job. Most people spend what average, I believe it's like 5 or 6 years at a job before they find something new, correct?
Yeah.
Correct me
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but I think it's like an average of, you don't necessarily build a career. It's very rare now that people have a career in the same field
Hmm.
continuing on. Like there's always that transition, right? And
Hmm.
so I think it's just so important that we, jobs in general, have discussions and have dialogues about mental wellness
Oh, yeah.
because people need it. And there has to be an outlet where people don't feel ashamed. I think the big thing is that people feel ashamed to admit that they are hurting, to admit that they are struggling. Like
Hmm.
nobody wants to admit, I'm not doing well.
Yeah.
right? That's just, why would people want to admit that? And
But
so I think we need
there's
to
also
have
this
more
perception.
avenues.
There's also this perception that I'm sorry to cut you off. There's also this perception that people
No,
have
go ahead.
that when you rely on your friends, right, and you let them into that part of their life. Say you're struggling with your mental wellness, and you let your
Hmm.
friends in, you let them know what you're struggling with. There's there's this perception that your friends will automatically think that you're like crazy, or that you're a nut job, or that you're unstable, right? And they won't want to be friends with you anymore, or they won't respond the way that you want them to respond, right? And
Hmm.
in some cases that's true, right? You might have really shitty friends and they might respond to that, but I think that in most cases when you rely on people, they really understand where you're coming from. And especially being in the university environment, I think more so now than ever, people really understand where people are coming from when talking about mental health, right? Because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will say from personal experience, I am typically, when it comes to things like this, I am naturally a pretty private person.
Hmm.
Um, just because I don't necessarily like my entire business in the streets.
Hmm.
Now that has evolved as I've gotten older, um, especially in my 30s, like the start of my 30s, I went through a really, really rough patch, just of things that were happening in our family dynamic that were outside of our control. And I just struggled really hard because I felt this insane pressure to keep up this, even though, and let's just be clear, it was kind of sort of common knowledge that we were going through some issues personally and business related, our family at the time. And so, but I felt this insane pressure to keep up the facade that I was okay. Like, even though we were struggling, we were so struggling. Um, to the point that, my husband had lost basically steady income. We went on welfare for 2 years, which is something for the longest time I have never really even admitted publicly.
Hmm.
Those that knew me very, very well knew, but for the most part, I kept that very quiet, because I didn't want the shame of it. Now that I'm older, right? I shouldn't have been ashamed. Like, that was where I was at in my life. But it wasn't, and I knew it wasn't of my doing. Like, it wasn't something that I did to get me to the place that we were there. It had there was many moving parts, but in my early 30s, it was rough. Like, Michael, it was really rough. And there were times where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and
Yeah.
I felt this huge juxtaposition of trying to keep up this facade of, do I tell my friends, and like you said, do I tell my friends and talk to them about it? Are they going to think of me the same?
Hmm.
Here I am, super struggling. Or do I admit that I am and hope that they'll still be by my side and still want to help me through what is going on? And like I said, the ones that I did have conversations with, more in personal, in-depth conversations with, um, they were there. They were with me, ride or die. I call them my prison friends. Like, they're the ones you call up in the middle of the night and you're like, yo, I just did this. And they're like, yo, let's
I
go.
need
Let
bailed
me,
out.
like not even bailed out, like, yo, let me help you hide the body, right? We got this, girl, it's all good. I'm coming, I'm
Uh,
on my way. They're
yeah.
like, they're your prison friends. Like, they're tens, they're your prison friends. They will go to prison with you. Oh, they'll be like, no, I don't know what happened. I don't know. But
Yeah.
so I mean, and but like I said, when I was struggling in my 30s, it was kind of common knowledge that people knew what was going on. But there was that insane pressure to keep up that, like, yes, what's going on, and yes, we are struggling, but not to admit that we were struggling to the degree that we were struggling, I think. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so it was just hard. And my mental wellness, because I mean, you know me well, I'm pretty typically like upbeat and positive. Like, I don't really have a lot to be upset about. Like, I do have
Hmm.
a good life. But I just remember, like, it was a struggle for me. It was very, very hard. And at the same time, too, I had family members that were going through some serious health issues. So not only was I dealing with the fact that, like, our family dynamic was just a huge mess, not by our doing, but then I was also taking care of this family member that was having these huge serious health issues. Plus, at the time, I just found out that I was newly pregnant. Do you know what I mean? And so you take all of those emotions and my mental, I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess. And honestly, and I will admit this, I probably should have seen someone or talked to someone about my mental health wellness,
Hmm.
but I didn't, because I didn't want that emotional stigma of I'm struggling. Now I have made it through out to the other side, and I feel like my mental wellness right now is in a good place. But if you would have asked me that 10 years ago, I mean, I was a hot mess. I may not have looked a hot mess on the outside, right? When I was in public and I presented that public face, but really I was a hot mess. And so I think it's just important that if you are struggling, please, 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 I can't even emphasize this enough, say something, right? And I promise you that you probably don't even realize it, but your friends are probably struggling with similar issues, or they have been there and have walked maybe not the same path, but a similar path. And they're
Hmm.
willing to be your prison friends, and to help you. And those friends that aren't your prison friends, that wind up whenever you're struggling and they don't wind up being that ride or die friend, that's okay too. Because, and I say it's okay because at that moment where they're at in their lives, they can't meet you where you're at,
Oh yeah.
right? And it's nothing against them. They just can't meet you where you're at. Doesn't mean they don't love you or they don't care about you. They just
Hmm.
can't meet you right there, right now. And that's okay too, right? Because I think we all struggle at different points and we all have issues at different points. And so you just have to acknowledge, like, where is that person at right now in their life? Like, are they, do they have their own mental wellness together enough to meet me where I'm at? I am like at a 2. I'm struggling so bad. And does my friend, who I think is like my best friend and good and ready to go, can they help meet me when I'm at my 2? Can they be at their 10 and help pull me out? And sometimes you'll find that that friend that you thought was always at a 10 and like always had their crap together really isn't a 10. They might really be more like a 6. And if
Yeah.
they don't help you, it's just this because they're not at a 10. They're not mentally at a place where they can help you. So I think that's also important to recognize too. But like I said, I can't stress enough. If you are struggling, say something. Say
Hmm.
something. Ask for help. There is no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in like talking to people. It's important. It is so important that you get the help that you need and that you get your mental wellness overall to be better. That's kind of my
Yeah.
take on it.
Yeah. I would like to thank you for sharing that story with us. I'm sure a lot of
Yeah,
people can
no.
relate, and I think it's important to share those details because I think in the age of social media where we're always sharing only positive things about us,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
people forget that all of us are human and we don't it's not always happy go lucky, right?
That we're
So
people. Yeah, that
yeah.
we are people and that we have our own struggles. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
the point that you made about going to seek out help, I think I want to comment on that real quick. um, Going to see somebody whose job it is to analyze what you are telling them and give you feedback on what you are telling them when they have no personal stake in your relationship or in how they think of you or what you think of them, it's so important to see somebody like that. It's so
oh
important
yeah,
to
for
see
sure.
somebody who's been trained that way, who doesn't care what you think of them or what they think of you, right? They're there to help you and they have nothing to gain other than helping you. So I think that's super important. Um, So, from a university standpoint, and I think a lot of the younger population listening can maybe relate to me. So, I'm going to share a quick little story, and then it'll be time for us to move on to our next topic.
Okay.
So, when I was in high school, I worked during school, and I didn't really have to try hard in high school. Things came super easy to me. I maintained a part-time job about 25 hours a week. I did extracurricular activities. I was involved in clubs, like the quote unquote like perfect high school life, right? Like I had everything and things were so easy and it was great. I graduated with above a 4.0 weighted average and got into a really good university, and we were balling, right? When you
Yeah.
show
Okay.
up to a university system and you're surrounded by people who want to learn and who are, if not on the same level that you are or higher, right? It's really
Yes.
disheartening. It really is. It's so
Yeah.
disheartening going from being the one of the smartest kids at school, right? Like I graduated and I was 27th in my class of 200. So I was basically the the top 25% in the class, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
when you show up to a university and it's filled with students who are the top 25% of their class or the top 5 or 10% of their class, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you become friends with them and you study with them and you realize how smart and how easy things come to them, when on the other hand you're starting to struggle. You develop something in the university system which is known as imposter syndrome. And that's
Yes.
something that I struggle with sometimes. It's not an ongoing thing, but I definitely get in my own head about it, um, especially when I do poorly on assignments or exams in comparison to other people. So, imposter syndrome is defined by feeling like you don't belong somewhere. So, for
Yes.
instance, if I fail an exam and I develop imposter syndrome, what I would feel would be feelings of not belonging in the university, and it kind of spirals out of control. You think, oh, I don't belong in this major. I'm not smart enough for this major. Oh, I don't
Mm-hmm.
belong in this school. I'm not smart enough in this school. Oh, I don't belong to this study group, or I don't belong to this group of friends because they're all smarter than me. Right.
Yes.
So that's something that I struggle with, and I know lots of people struggle with it because it really was such a juxtaposition coming from a high school environment where I wouldn't have to study for things, I wouldn't have to try hard, and I would get A's on everything and we'd move along, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
going to a university system where things are so fast paced and so much more difficult, and you're being taught by people who are experts in their field or they're doing research in that field, it becomes so much more difficult. It really does. Like
No.
it's so much harder, and people really don't give enough credit to university kids because I think even 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, I I think it was easier back then in comparison to what it is now. So, for instance, this last Tuesday, we had a mental health day, given to us by the university because we're in a COVID schedule. We don't have any days
Mm-hmm.
off until the end of the semester except two. And those are allocated in the middle of the week. One falls on a Tuesday, which is this last Tuesday that we just had, and one falls on a Wednesday. And
Okay.
basically, faculty were told to not give assignments leading up to that day and leading after that day for a couple days so we could actually use that day to reset and actually enjoy the day. But
Yes.
I had an exam the day after and another exam on that Thursday. So I spent all day studying. Um, so I did not use my mental health day. And whether that's the fault of my professors or the fault of the university for not enforcing those rules, it is what it is. But I definitely developed imposter syndrome after that day just because I spent all day 8 hours studying for an exam, and I didn't
Yes.
do as well as I thought I did. So, or I
Okay.
thought I would do. So
Yes.
that's definitely something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of my friends struggle with that as well. But we're all in it together. We're going to graduate eventually, start our careers, and it's going to be amazing. So
It
I
will
don't
be
know
amazing.
what
And
else.
listen, I know we have to transition, but I just want to say this really quick because you were talking about that. I think that's just, I think we like, yes, so you were given a mental health day, but it wasn't really truly a mental health day, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even though there was guidelines and parameters and stipulations, and so I think that's where America is failing,
Oh,
right?
100%.
When we say mental health, mental wellness day, it literally should be a day that there are no expectations whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
You
but
can say, oh,
right now
but
in
right
our current
now there's still
environment, it's
expectation.
defined. Yeah, it's defined as a work catch-up day, which it is
Yes,
not.
which really it should not be. There's
Yeah.
still expectations and guidelines put on it that, oh, well, we're going to give you a mental wellness day, but you still need to study for exam A, B, and C, which are going to
Hmm.
happen later in the week. That's
Yes.
not what a mental health day is for. It is literally a day, in my mind, it should be a day where you turn off everything, that
Hmm.
you are kind of absent from social media, you are absent and you take care of you. Whether that means you stay in bed 8 hours a day, great. Whether that means you go and do your favorite thing for 8 hours a day, great. But there are no expectations and no guidelines and no limits. And I think that's where we as Americans still struggle. Like, we say, oh, it's a mental health day, but it truly never really is. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that when you were talking about that. But we could spend all day on this topic, and I'm sure we will revisit this topic
Oh,
at some
100%.
point because
Yes.
you know how I feel about mental wellness. I think it's so important. But can we transition into my question now?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Are you ready?
I'm so
Okay,
ready.
so okay. All right. So it's kind of the question is based out of a kind of a situation that happened this week personally for me that
Hmm.
involves a little bit of sadness. So a family member, their significant other, their person that they have been with for a very long period of time, passed away, and kind of not not unexpectedly, but yes, unexpectedly in the sense that he did have some health problems and some health issues which were ongoing. Um, and but he seemed to be getting better, and then he unexpectedly passed away.
Hmm.
So when I say unexpectedly, like, he eventually would have succumbed to his health problems because they were prolonged. Do you know what I mean? But he was
Yeah.
receiving medical care and medical treatment to prolong his life. But eventually, you know, your body, honestly, after so long, can't take that amount constantly, day in and day out.
Hmm.
And so, anyway, so he passed away unexpectedly this week. And so that kind of got me on the thought of kind of death and dying. And then I kind of did a little bit of research thinking about how death is viewed in different cultures. And
Hmm.
it is viewed so differently in so many different cultures. So, my question to you is, what is your personal view on death and how do you feel about it?
Hmm. First and foremost, I want to just give my sympathies to that family that you're speaking about. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry for your loss, Tina. I know that you were probably close with them. Um, on the topic of death, it's something that weirdly I'm very okay with at my age. I have a tattoo that actually recognizes death as a possibility. And that's just one of the things that I have on my body that constantly I remember in my mind. Um, so I am not really religious. I don't believe in an afterlife. I basically, my thoughts on death are it's very simple. I think when you die, that's it. I just think it's game over, black screen forever. and that's what it is. I know that sounds really shitty, but like that's just what
Black
I
screen, black screen forever. Like, boom, that's it. You're done.
yeah, like I honestly do think like I don't think that there is anything, and if there is, that's something super cool. Like I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? But I really don't think that there is anything after this. I think that we're living, and like when you die, that's just it. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's somebody waiting for me on the other side that's gonna like transport me to paradise and like do this and that. I just think that when you die, you die. You know what I mean? And
Okay. Yeah.
uh, I how do I feel about that? I mean, I am definitely not ready to die, but I also so I'll touch on my tattoo a little bit. So I have the Latin phrase "memento mori" tattooed on me, and what "memento mori" means is it literally translates to "remember death." Okay, sounds really
Okay.
morbid at first. The meaning behind the tattoo is basically that death can occur at any point. You know what I mean? I could walk out, and I always say this, and I say this to my significant other, which stops us from having many arguments. So it's positive in my mind. Um, when I could walk out tomorrow morning and get hit by a car, and that could be it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm very conscious of the fact that I could be sitting here right now, and God forbid there be, I don't believe in God. I don't know why I said that, but um, saying there could be a blood clot in my leg and I could die in the next 5 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just very conscious of the fact that anything could happen. I'm totally okay with it happening. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. Um, but I don't think that there's anything after it. And I am totally okay with that. I'm totally okay with there being nothing following this. So those are just my thoughts. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so I kind of have a twofold answer. The twofold answer, the first part of that is the Mormon in me, um,
Hmm.
learning and growing up and being in Mormon culture and being in the Mormon religion. Um, I do believe that there is some place for us to go when we leave this earth. There
Hmm.
is a place for us. Now, in Mormon religion, it's very defined. There's three different kingdoms of where you can go, three different levels. Like the level, there's like the celestial level was the highest level, and then there's like a mid level, and then there's a level where, like, mid level is like where everybody goes. Like, you have a general belief, and then kind of like a lower level where you probably maybe not did some not so great things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be down in the depths of hell or purgatory.
Hmm.
So the Mormon in me does believe that there's some place to go. Um, Now, as you all know, I am not an active Mormon currently. So my evolved answer is that I I still do think there's some place to go. What that is, I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, I also know that for me personally, I do believe like you, when it's my time to go, I have served and lived my purpose,
Hmm.
whether it be a short time or whether it be a long time. And I've said this and I say this all the time. I feel like if I make it to 70, I feel like I've lived a good life. Like, I feel like if I make it to 70, I've done okay. And
Hmm.
I will be completely at peace with going. You know what I mean? Like, I won't feel like, oh my gosh, I still have so many things to do. Right? Because I feel like when
Yeah.
you hit 70 to 75, you're on the downside. You're on the downside. Not
Hmm.
that that's a bad thing. I just feel like I in my head, to me, 70 to 75 is when things are like, okay, I will be completely at peace and ready to go. Um, am I ready to go right now? No, because I still feel like I have so many things left to do. But in the same time, I also recognize that there is a higher purpose and a higher plan, whether you believe in God or not, or a universal spirit or whatever it is, that um when it's your time, it's your time. Like that's the one thing that we don't control. We don't control the time. We feel like
Hmm.
there's an illusion of we're controlling time, but we really don't control the time. Um,
Oh no,
so
I
that's
completely
one.
agree with you that we're on this set course, right? If that's what you're saying, we're on this set course where
Yeah,
whatever's going to happen in the future is already predetermined, and we just
you
think we
know,
can change
and
it, right?
yes, and I think too that there are many, like, we're on a course and we can view, like, tangent off that course, right? And it might correct us in a parallel or bring us back to where we are. But I think that when we go, there is a place for us,
Hmm.
um, when we get there, and we will see our loved ones and the ones that have gone before us. I have been very adamant about this with my husband, that when I do pass, I don't want people to feel sad. That is the last thing that I want people to feel. Like, and I get it. Feeling sad is a natural reaction. Like, you know what I mean? I want you to feel lost. I want you to feel sad for the loss that my body is no longer here, but I don't want you to feel sad that the essence of my spirit and the things that I did are no longer here, because they are still here. They're in you because I've come in contact with you and I've hopefully inspired and touched you in some way, to make you feel better about yourself. So I
Hmm.
don't want people to feel sad in that sense. Feel sad in the sense of, the loss of my body is here and you won't see my body or my face every day, but do not feel sad that my essence or my presence won't be here, because I believe that it truly still will be here.
Hmm.
I have said to my husband too in many conversations that I don't want your traditional, like, your traditional funeral where you have a viewing, people come look at the body, and then,
You
people give
want your
eulogy.
Mardi Gras, like,
I want a full
yeah.
on Mardi Gras band marching in the streets, people dancing, literally. And then, where you have the traditional, like, you have the banquet or the wake or the food or whatever. I want a playlist of, like, all my favorite songs. And, it's going to be like straight 90s hip hop all day, every day.
Some
And
Biggie.
I want some Biggie, some Tupac. Like, it's gonna be, and I want people up and dancing. I
Hmm.
honestly want it to be a celebration, because I want people to have a sense that my essence and spirit is is there, and that's what I'm about. I don't want people to feel sad. And so as I was doing, like, research, a lot of cultures, you know, like, for instance, in Mexico, right? Death is a new beginning, right?
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
about going on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And they're sad that the person's not there, but it's a new beginning. It's like a new start, right?
Hmm.
And that's what I want people to feel. I thought this was interesting, and I thought I was going to ask you about this, okay? And you
Okay.
could tell me if this is true or not. So, this article that I was reading, it said, in Eastern Europe, like, for like a Russian funeral, family
Hmm.
members stop the clocks and cover mirrors to avoid more death in the family. Did your family do that? Like, if someone passed away, did they
Um,
stop the clocks and cover the mirrors?
So I don't remember us doing that. I've never heard of stopping the clocks, but I have heard of not looking in the mirror. And I know that more conservative, traditional people in Eastern Europe will wear black as a sign of mourning for an entire year. So I know that is a thing. Um, what we do, which I honestly think is very Russian at heart and a great tradition that I will definitely carry on in my future, is we take a picture of the person who has passed. Um, we pour them a shot of vodka, and we pour them a slice, or we pour them a shot of vodka, and we put a slice of bread on top of the shot. So in death, they take the shot of vodka, and then they have something to chase after it, which is the bread. And you light a candle next to the picture. It's a nice little shrine for them. When we toast to the dead, we do not clink our glasses together. We don't like cheers each other, just as a sign of
Mm-hmm.
respect for the dead. But Yeah, I've never heard of anybody stopping clocks. That may be true. I'm not positive. I thankfully has not had many people who I know that have passed yet. But yeah.
No, I think I just want people to celebrate. I really do. And I really truly do mean this. So if you know me well, like I really do want people to celebrate. Like I want it to be a celebration of all the things that I hope in this life that I embody, right?
Hmm.
And so I don't want, like I said, I don't want a viewing. I think it's the creepiest. Sorry for those of you that have had families pass away, or and no disrespect, because you may choose and do what you would like. I just personally, I think it is the weirdest thing, and it always makes me feel weird as well. I just
Hmm.
feel uncomfortable that when you have an open viewing, right? Here
Yeah.
is the person that is deceased, right? And you're going up to view them and look at them in their casket, and there they are, right? And you're just
Hmm.
having conversations in front of this person who has passed, right? And they're sitting there, kind of very solemn and looking peaceful. I definitely don't want that. Like I don't need everybody to see me lying there in that state. I don't want people to remember me in that state, whether I look good or not. Whether the mortician does my makeup really good, so I look good. Like I don't want people to see me in that state.
Yeah, I
And
agree with you. It is a little weird to me too that
you know,
people want to look
and
at dead bodies.
and and then the other thing that always kind of weirded me out, um when we go to cemeteries. I don't like cemeteries. I always feel like I'm walking on top of people. I know that, and obviously you are, because they are underneath the ground, but
Hmm.
it just is one of those things where it just weirds me out. I don't like it. So I don't think I necessarily really want, because some people do have graveside services and they dedicate the grave, and that's for your choice to have. If you do that with your family members, or you have done that with your past family members, please know that I respect that decision. I just know that it's not for me. Like I
Hmm.
would rather have a memorial service, and you can put pictures up of me everywhere. You can make a slideshow, right? But I do know that I want a band, a Mardi Gras band, and I'd want like people to march down the middle of the street and play in the band, and I want it to be a processional with the full umbrellas. I'm talking full on New Orleans Mardi Gras funeral with the
Hmm.
umbrellas and people singing and marching, and it's slow and then gets a beat, like, and then we all go back to the church or wherever it's at, and we have all of my favorite foods. I want all of my favorite foods, and I want an entire 90s playlist of nothing but like 90s hip hop jams, and a
Hmm.
dance floor in the middle. And people can dance and celebrate and have a good time. And when like certain songs that they knew, like, would come on, like if you knew me from high school, Whoop, There It Is, when that would come on, everybody would be out in the middle, be like, Whoop, There It Is, and dance it. Like that's literally what I want. I don't want any sadness involved. I don't want people to feel sad. I want people to feel happy and celebrate.
Hmm.
Celebrate the essence of who I was and what I embody, and keep that embodiment with them, and not have
Yes.
this state of sadness. And like I said, I've always thought about it, but obviously having the situation happen this week that happened made me even more conscious of it.
Hmm.
And then I was like, well, what do other countries think? And if you look at other countries, a lot of them, it is more celebratory,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
and I and I feel like that's what I would want. That's,
Hmm.
because that's who I was. That's who I am, right?
Hmm.
I'm not this like sad person. I try not to be. And so I want it to be a celebratory good time, and like I said, it will be the ultimate 90s playlist. And it'll be a huge dance party. And everybody may be like in their 80s dancing to Whoop There It Is, but it'll
Yeah.
be such a good time, and we will have so much fun, and we will have all of my favorite foods. So
All
that's
right.
kind
So
of
I
my
have two questions that I want both of us to answer real quick. Like
Okay.
30-second response, 30 to 40-second response. All right.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap it up for the end, and that's another week done.
Okay.
So first question
Okay.
being, what would you like done with your body?
Oh, what would I like done with my body? Okay, so I think I would like my body to be buried. Just because that's the Mormon in me. We don't cremate because your body is something that you take with you to the afterlife. And obviously, I do believe that there is a place for us to go. So I would
Mhm.
say no cremation, bury my body.
Okay.
You?
Um, I would like to be cremated. I don't want people to keep my ashes. I would like to be like turned into a tree or something, something special like that, like given back to nature.
So do you
Um,
want we can spread your ashes. I had one friend that wherever she went, like her brother passed away, and so wherever she went, when she went on special trips or did stuff, she just sprinkled a little bit of his ashes everywhere. So like one
yeah,
time
I
she
don't
went to
know if I
Costa
want that.
Rica.
I don't know if I want that. I know that there's a company out there that will give you a tree sapling and somehow like mix it with your ashes and stuff, and like you get turned into a tree basically because it like feeds off of the nutrients from your body. Um, my second question is, are you okay with not knowing what comes after death?
Okay, what do you mean by not knowing? Like just
Like
not having.
I can't prove that there's nothing after death and you can't prove that there is an afterlife. So are you okay with not knowing what comes next? Like are you at peace with that?
Yes, because I think that's the beauty of this life. That's the beauty of every day, not knowing what's going to come next. So why would it be any different in death to me, right? I
Mhm.
just think it's no different in what we do every day. Like I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to eat for breakfast tomorrow. Actually, yes, I do. It's probably going to be bacon and eggs. But but I'm just saying in general, like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I
Yeah.
feel like, I think the notions of predetermined things have kind of been something that has been instituted through religion and organized religion, which I think is okay. That
Hmm.
they are giving a definitive answer to
Yeah.
something that people need. But like I said, the Mormon in me, they have outlined what the afterlife looks like. Um, the practicing Mormon in me, if I was practicing, the non-practicing Mormon in me knows that there is a place to go. What
Hmm.
that looks like, whether it looks like what I've been taught as a former practicing Mormon, if it looks like that, or if it looks like something different.
Hmm.
But I'm totally okay with not knowing, and I'm totally okay if it's like you said, it's a black screen.
Yeah. I think the reason why people are believe in this is probably going to end the topic for the night. I think the reason why a lot of people believe in an afterlife or in organized religion is because it gives you some sort of guideline on what to expect next, and people hate not knowing. You know what I mean? People hate not knowing what comes next, so they are attracted to these things that give them some sort of guideline on what comes next. But yes, I am totally at peace with the
Oh,
fact that I don't know what comes next, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what my life is going to look like for the next, even in the next 2 years to 3 years, right? I'm totally okay with that.
yeah. No, I would agree with you. I think people like guidelines, you know,
Yeah.
in some way innate and subconsciously we feel like we need them. But I feel like you, I'm okay not knowing. And that's, I know we're going somewhere, you know, there's somewhere, whether there's like, like a Zoom room, like a waiting room, and like,
Oh God, no.
the host lets us in, right? What, however that
Oh
looks,
God.
like, I'm okay with not knowing, and that's,
If the afterlife is just one big Zoom waiting room, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Spend my entire life just like bopping around in a breakout room.
bopping from breakout room to breakout room or waiting for the host to let you in. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, this was another good episode for us. This was another good topics of things that we talked about. And like I said, if you're listening, please feel free to leave comments and let us know your thoughts. We may not always agree, and that's okay, but We just kind of want to have these open dialogues so we can learn and grow from each other and get different perspectives. So I'm Dina McKell.
And I'm Michael Petuhoff.
And this is Sliding with D&M.
Thank you guys for listening. See you guys next week.